Good evening. Welcome to the September 10, 2018 meeting of the Stillwater City Council. I'm going to call the meeting to order and ask you all to stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. We get to start tonight on a high note with a recognition. Tonight we're recognizing 6 young men who displayed tremendous bravery and compassion in rescuing a resident. These young men, I think, are here tonight. Zach Willis, Zach Palmatier, Thomas Corbell, Jake DeWolf, Jack Berry, and Nate Kelly. During the storm and flooding on August 16th, these 6 college students rescued a woman who was trapped in her vehicle by rising water that pushed her car into the drainage channel that crosses Orchard Street just north of 6th Avenue. These gentlemen sprung into action, waded against the current in water 12 to 18 inches deep, opened her passenger car door, and carried her back to their home. Once inside, they comforted her, helped her dry off, and contacted her daughter, who came to pick her up. After the storm and floodwaters receded, these men helped even further. They and other college students in the neighborhood physically pulled her car from the drainage channel and pushed it back to safety. In recognition of this courageous and selfless act, the Stillwater City Council and the City of Stillwater asked these young men to join us tonight so that we could express our gratitude and present them with a certificate of appreciation for their selfless act. Thank you to each of you for being thoughtful and caring for citizens of this community. We commend you all for your actions. Thank you. I should also add my thanks to Richard Buchanan, who brought the incident to our attention and made sure we recognize these guys. So thank you, Mr. Buchanan. All right, that takes us to item 4 on our agenda, the consent docket. Councilors, questions, comments on the consent docket?
Mayor, I would like to pull item C, please.
Item C, approve addendum of lease agreement between the City of Stillwater and Our Daily Bread. We will pull that from the consent docket. Councilors, any other items?
Motion to approve the consent docket minus item C.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent docket minus item C. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, the consent docket minus item C passes. All right, that takes us to item 5, public comment on agenda items not scheduled for public hearing. You guys are going to have to give me just a second here because I have a couple of, and a lot of paper. Well, he's not. Mr. Reed? Hello, Keith.
Hello.
Please give us your name and address for the record and let us know what you have to say.
Okay. Keith Reed. I work, play, and spend almost all my money in Perkins. I mean Stillwater, but I'm a resident of Perkins, 523 West 9th. You'll be pleased to know I'm going to stick to text here. So, I'm here on behalf of the Bicycle Pedestrian Ad Hoc Committee. There are 2 items of note on today's agenda that I would like to briefly comment on, but my main reason for being here tonight is that there are issues highlighting a broader concern. First item is 4B regarding a proposed right-of-way narrowing on West Street. According to my understanding of the current TIF plan, the area in question has planned sidewalk and elevated bike paths on each side of the road, plus a center line of angled road parking. So what assurances do we have that if this closure is granted, the sidewalk and bike paths will remain intact, which of course would mean at the loss of on-street parking? The second item is changes relative to Ordinance 3418 brought about with the arrival of electric scooters. Scooters are just one form of personal mobility devices benefiting from improvements in technology. Faster mobility scooters, skateboards, electric bikes, etc., are becoming more and more popular as the technology improves. And I think it's important to add that's not just the college crowd, that's for people of all ages. So my broader concern, and BPAC's broader concern, is this. We have simply not made it a priority to improve our infrastructure, not only to accommodate this new user group, but the walkers, runners, and bicycle riders that have been here since Stillwater was founded. We have good intentions. Stillwater's guiding documents such as the Transportation Enhancement Plan, the multi-use trail plan, and now the TIF plan, talk a strong talk and paint a great picture of what Stillwater should look like from an active transportation perspective. As these technologies are coming online, and you think of active transportation, is a scooter active transportation? I think for the purposes of this discussion, yes, it would qualify as that. But there's a strong history of disconnect between what these plans call for and what gets built or doesn't get built. So my primary question is simply this: what do we need to do as at an ad hoc committee and as a greater community to make sure that the plans and policies that we have in place are actually what we have on the finished product? I think, once we do that and actually give people a well-connected, well-thought-out, safe, active transportation network, people will respond in a positive way, and it could make our city a better place. So,
Thank you.
that's it. Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, our second speaker is Mr. Charles Snyder.
Howdy, folks. I'm sure you guys have met me before. I'm here to talk about Ordinance 3414. Closer. Thank you. I'm here to talk about Ordinance 3414, which is going to be the adoption of the 2015 building codes. I just had a few quick comments to make about it. One, I'm glad that this is getting around to being done. It has been over 2.5 years since the state adopted the building codes, and so I'd hope that with the next iteration of building codes, it gets addressed a little bit quicker. Specifically for the amendments that you guys are proposing, in the International Residential Code, Chapter 11, which deals with the energy code standards, currently there is language inserted into it that is from a compliance guide. It's not really, everything that's in it is correct, but it's not written in a code type language, and it doesn't differ at all from what the state already had to say dealing with the energy code. And so I would suggest that that portion and that amendment be taken out. I've already contacted the person who originally wrote that compliance guide, and he also agrees. So, and if you'd like, I can provide you guys with that contact information. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, it takes us to item 6, items removed from the consent docket. Councilor Darlington on item 4C.
Sure. This is just following the good modeling of Councilor Zanotti. When there's something of particular interest to the citizens, I think we should pull it off the consent docket. And this was the, Our Daily Bread is hoping to do a garden, and at the site of their Our Daily Bread service building, south on Perkins Road. And I hope that if you have not been there, you should drive down and take a look at it. But they've been in business now for just 4 days over 1 year, and they've filled over 10,000 grocery carts full of food representing almost 30,000 individuals. That's a lot of volunteers, from the community who are helping with that. A lot of people and businesses donating food, and a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for all of our citizens. So just wanted to make that note.
Excellent. Thank you. Councilors, is there a motion regarding this item?
Motion to approve item C, renewing addendum to lease the agreement between the City of Stillwater and Our Daily Bread.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve item 4C. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, that item is approved. All right, that takes us to item 7, public hearings. 7A, receive public comment regarding a request for the closing of an unnamed right-of-way at Teal Ridge Estates, 3rd Section, 2199 and 1799 West 19th Avenue, and 1940 West 26th Avenue. This is CC-18-105. Mr. McNichol.
Lance Gross with Development Services, who will give that report.
Yes, thank you and good evening. The closing before you tonight is for the 3rd edition of Teal Ridge Estates. And just to give you an idea where it's located, it is east of Western, and it's between 19th and 26th. The purple boundary indicates the location of the unnamed right-of-way, which has no utilities. A preliminary plat for Section 3 of Teal Ridge has a different street right-of-way, which is why the closing has been submitted. This is a street view looking to the west-northwest. And the tree line right along here is the location of the existing right-of-way, which has been requested to be removed. Are there any questions?
Councilors? Not at this time. I will now open the public hearing. We don't have any speakers to speak on this item, so I'll close the public hearing. And I'll ask Lance to walk back up to the podium and provide a recommendation.
Staff recommends approval of this application.
Thank you. Councilors, comments, questions, or motions?
Motion to accept the staff recommendation to close the right-of-way at Teal Ridge Estates, 3rd Section.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve item A. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, that item is approved. Item 8A, under general orders. 8A, establish certain fees and development services. This is CC-18-104. Mr. McNichol.
Development Services Director Paula Dennison will provide that information.
Good evening. Paula Dennison with Development Services. In 2016, the Finance Department for the city prepared a cost of services study for the Development Services Department, found that there is a very large gap between the revenues and expenditures in that individual department. Before any action was taken by the City Council, through discussions with the Council, y'all asked us to go back and visit further with the Builders Group for more discussions of the true impact of any of these fees that were proposed in the cost of services study. From that discussion, we're finally back with you this evening. In your package, you have what is supported by the Builders Group. They recommend, as do staff, to not increase any of the fees that are currently on the books, but to apply fees where there are none. And those are the fees that you have in your packet that have been reviewed many times by the Builders Group and staff, and they are recommending those fees. Be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Councilors?
I appreciated the way it was presented. It was nice to see. I didn't realize that we had many that were not.
Yes, ma'am. Hopefully, we're fixing to remedy that.
And also that you worked with the Builder Relations Committee and that they do approve of this. That's
Yes, they
pretty
absolutely
crucial.
do.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have a sense of how big of an impact this will have on the discrepancy between what we bring in and what we spend?
No, and one of the reasons is because 2 years ago when the cost of services study was completed. There was more activity occurring throughout the community, has slowed down somewhat, so that also is going to have an impact. But we have all agreed that within 6 months after the application of this, that would give a really good time frame to judge what additional makeup of that gap that there is. And we can revisit at that time.
All right. Counselors?
That was my question.
So is there a recommended action on this tonight?
Please, yes, approve applying development services fees where there are none and direct staff to prepare a resolution for the next meeting.
Do we need a vote on that, or is that a? Yes. Okay. Counselors?
Motion to,
Accept the staff recommendations?
Accept the staff recommendation and prepare a resolution for next meeting.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve staff recommendation. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, that item is approved.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Paula. All right, moving right along tonight. Item 8B is appointment process for the Stillwater Reinvestment Plan, the Stillwater Downtown Campus Link Project Plan for the Implementation Policy Committee. So this is just a discussion item that we put on tonight to talk about what the process will look like for us to appoint the Implementation Policy Committee for our the Stillwater Reinvestment Plan, which we adopted back in June. The project plan calls for, I don't know if, I forgot to bring a copy up, I don't know if you do. You probably didn't either.
My copy, but I think I can recall
Yeah.
what's in there. It provides for 4 citizens selected at large, and then there's a seat for the 3 main other taxing jurisdictions: Payne County, Meridian, Votech, and Stillwater Public Schools.
Okay, yeah. So we'll have those taxing jurisdictions and then 4 residents. Plan's a little bit, there's not a specific term for these. It says we'll establish a term when we appoint.
You'll establish terms for them, yes.
Yeah. The way we did this in the original TIF review committee is that the taxing jurisdictions pick the 4, but at this point, the council will choose 4 citizens in addition to
Yes.
the taxing jurisdiction. So I know we've gotten a couple people already online who've sent in applications. I don't think we have a specific application online for this committee, but certainly for folks who are interested in serving in the review committee for the TIF, certainly getting in touch with us or sending an email to the city or getting online would be a good idea. I think for the rest of the counselors, if you have recommendations or people, we should start to move forward with this here in the next, either at our next meeting or the meeting after. So what I think we'll probably do is if you have specific recommendations, you can make them. Otherwise, I'll propose a slate at the next meeting for you all to vote on. But other than that, I don't think there's any other process that's required.
Right, there's
Correct?
no process specified in
Okay.
the implementation plan.
Okay.
So do we need to define a deadline then if it's going to be by next meeting? Deadline to get names in by?
Yeah, our next meeting's next Monday is the 17th, and then do we have one after that, the 24th?
24th is the meeting.
Study session.
Study session. What do you guys think? Can we get those in for next week?
Get the word out.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Online application for regular boards and
Yeah.
committees, I think
That's fine.
probably the best way.
Yeah, okay. So online at stillwater.org, there's an application for boards and committees that you can go on and just indicate that you're interested in the Stillwater Reinvestment Plan Committee, and we'll take a look at that and try to get that board appointed next week.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Three people, Payne County, Meridian Technology, Stillwater Public Schools,
Mhm.
4 citizens at large. Any city representative or council representative?
I don't think so, because these are, the way this board will work, they'll review, make a recommendation one way or the other, and then it comes to us for review on everything. So I don't think that there's any requirement or necessity to have a city representative on that
Developer
panel.
approaches the city manager first, he does it, and then goes to the committee.
Yeah.
The committee looks at it, then comes to council, then we.
Yeah.
there's a-
yeah, there's a 3-step process here. So the city staff will look at all of those
Right.
requests.
Make sure
and
they
it will
meet the
go,
guidelines.
yeah, to this committee to make sure that it is something that we as a community want to invest in, and then it will come to us for final approval. All right, I think that's it on that item. Any other questions or discussion? Thank you all. All right, now we come to the reading section of the meeting. You guys, I feel like you're writing longer ordinances just for me, or ordinance titles.
I would never do that.
All right, item 9, ordinances. On first reading, ordinance number 3417. An ordinance amending the city code of the city of Stillwater, Oklahoma, chapter 12, titled Businesses, by amending Article 4, Itinerant Merchants and Peddlers, section 12-117, definitions, by revising the definition of itinerant merchant, providing for severability, and declaring an emergency. Mr. Dorman, I assume this is related to our scooters.
Yes, this is part one of the transitional changes to the ordinances with regard to scooters. By making this change to the definition of an itinerant merchant, you're including rentals in the list of various types of items that can be licensed under an itinerant merchant license. So we've simply added the word or rental of in a couple of spaces there, and that's the only change here.
Okay. As we've discussed earlier, our new scooter rental business has occasioned us to look at many ordinances and make a few changes to make sure we're all covered, right? Councilors, questions or comments or motions?
Motion to advance. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Motion to advance ordinance 3417 to second reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to advance ordinance 3417. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, that ordinance is advanced to second reading.
Thank you, Councilor Zanati.
All right, item B, ordinance number 3418. An ordinance amending the city code of the city of Stillwater, Oklahoma, chapter 29, titled Motor Vehicles and Traffic, by amending Article 1 in general, section 29-1, definitions, by revising the definition of bicycle, electric assisted bicycle, and motorized bicycle, adding new definitions for the terms moped, motor scooter or motorized scooter, and motor-driven cycle, amending Article 7, bicycles and motorized scooters, by renaming it bicycles and non-licensed electric and motorized personal conveyances, amending Section 29-201 generally and Section 29-211 riding on sidewalks, amending Article 8, motorcycles and motor scooters, by renaming it motorcycles, motor-driven cycles, and mopeds, amending Section 29-222 required equipment, amending Section 29-223 clinging to vehicles, deleting Section 29-224 handlebars, amending Section 29-225 passing between lanes, amending Section 29-226 riding on sidewalks, amending Section 29-227 headgear, deleting Section 29-228 restriction on time of operation, and amending Section 29-229 special speed limitation, providing for severability and declaring an emergency. Mr. Dorman.
All right, this is the meat of the scooter revisions. Basically what we did is that we went into the state definitions of the various types of propelled devices. I don't know what else you call them. But we went through and we basically took all of the different definitions they had of bicycles, motor scooters, motorized scooters, mopeds, and motor-driven cycles, which are different than motorcycles. And we were able to basically, through these definitional adjustments, place the scooters, the motorized scooters, in the same section as bicycles. And then we basically have gone in and deleted motor scooters out of the section on motorcycles and replaced it with motor-driven cycles and mopeds. So basically now we've got a fairly clean distinction between the two types of conveyances. We did make a few adjustments in the section on bicycles with regard to riding on sidewalks. We made it clear that you could not ride them on CB zoned areas. So in other words, riding the scooters on the sidewalks downtown is not allowed, and in other areas that are zoned that way. And made sure that the manager had the authority to post areas where on sidewalks that would not be appropriate. Otherwise, that section is pretty much intact as it appeared before. On the section on motorcycles, basically what we did, the reason that you have a lot more sections in there that were amended is that we had to go in and delete the term motor scooters out. So when we removed that and then replaced it with motor-driven cycles, and then in a couple of instances mopeds, we were able to get the definitional coverage consistent with what we think the market and the types of vehicles are now that meet those descriptions. So with that, we think that we have a pretty good Band-Aid in place until we can work on the larger task of actually looking at all of these different kinds of new types of conveyances and bringing you back a more comprehensive ordinance that will deal with all of those.
Okay, so motorized scooters, the new electric motorized scooters that are now in town will be treated the same way as bicycles will be treated in terms
Yes,
of
sir.
where you can ride them. They're not allowed on sidewalks in central business or commercial business districts,
Right.
and potentially in other areas where
It would be posted.
we post something that says, and I would assume around stores where there's heavy trafficked areas where they might cause issues.
Right, places where it would be an obvious safety
Yep.
hazard. The other thing I would tell you is that there is a companion agreement with Bird Scooters that that we're in the process of getting executed, and Bird will do a lot of the PR work on where the things are supposed to be operated. That is a requirement of their contract, and so they will address it, and I think we will also work on an FAQ to get out to make it clear as to where these things can be operated. And so I'm hoping the combination of the two will get the word out, and these things can be done safely.
I heard there was going to be a video of Mr. McNichol riding around in the manner that they're safely operated. Is
That's
that-
correct. No, not at all. I have no cushion.
You should wear a helmet, just like everyone else.
Should.
Well, I think it speaks to what Keith Reed said earlier about being able to implement some ordinances that makes, this is a lot of great words, but doing it in our terms where we understand exactly what is expected and understood, because they are great modes of transportation. I've seen them being used all over town. I just want to make sure everyone knows what is the right way to use it and what is not the right way to use it,
Yes.
including this one who would probably get on it and end up. So the top 10 things to do when you're riding a scooter would be great.
To the point of headgear, actually, I just had one question. There was a fair amount of strike-through under section 29227, the headgear. Just curious as to what the thinking was behind liberating the definition of protective headgear as a neurologist.
What we did was we took out the parts of the definition that gave the local authorities the ability to regulate what that headgear consists of. In other words, establishing the safety standards. The state of Oklahoma does that, and they do that by adopting national standards as to what is an appropriate thickness or whatever it is you do with headgear. And I'm sure you know much more about that than me, but.
So basically, this just brings us in line more with the national standard
Yes.
as opposed to a municipal or local.
We don't have a city certification as to what is a suitable headgear, is the bottom line.
Thank you, sir.
All right, councilors, further questions, comments, or motions?
Motion to advance ordinance 3418 to second reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to advance ordinance 3418 to second reading. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, the ordinance is advanced. All right, the fun one. Where are we? Ordinances, item 9 on second reading, ordinance number 3414. An ordinance amending the city code of the city of Stillwater, Oklahoma, chapter 10, titled Building and Building Regulations, amending Article 2, Building Trades Board, section 10-23, titled Powers and Duties, enacting a new Article 2, section 10-25, titled initiation of an appeal to the Building Trades Board, enacting international and national building and construction standards promulgated by the International Code Council, ICC, and the National Fire Protection Association, NFPA, as amended and revised by the Oklahoma Uniform Building Code Commission, OUBCC, repealing Article 3 titled Basic Building Code, adopting a new Article 3 titled Adoption of the ICC International Building Code 2015 edition, which includes new sections 10-52, Adoption of the ICC International Building Code 2015 edition, 10-53, Amendments to the ICC International Building Code 2015 edition, 10-54, Industrial Construction Building Permit Expedited Process, and 10-55, Industrial Construction Certificate of Occupancy Expedited Procedure, repealing Article 4 titled 1 and 2 Family Dwelling Code, adopting a new Article 4 titled Adoption of the International Residential Code for 1 and 2 Family Dwellings, 2015 edition, which includes new sections 10-88, Adoption of the ICC International Residential Code for 1 and 2 Family Dwellings, 2015 edition, and 10-89, Amendments to the ICC International Residential Code for 1 and 2 Family Dwellings, 2015 edition, repealing Article 5 titled Property Maintenance Code, adopting a new Article 5 titled Adoption of the International Property Maintenance Code 2015 edition, which includes sections 10-111, Adoption of the ICC International Property Maintenance Code 2015 edition, and 10-112, Amendments to the ICC International Property Maintenance Code 2015 edition, repealing Article 7 titled Existing Buildings, adoption of a new Article 7 titled Adoption of the International Existing Building Code 2015 edition, which includes new section 10-234, adoption of the ICC International Existing Building Code 2015 edition, and 10-235, amendments to the ICC International Existing Building Code 2015 edition. Repealing Article 8, titled Plumbing Standards, Division 2, titled Plumbing Standards, adopting a new Article 8, Division 2, titled Adoption of the International Plumbing Code 2015 edition, which includes new sections 10-289, Adoption of the ICC International Plumbing Code 2015 edition, and 10-290, Amendments to the ICC International Plumbing Code 2015 edition. Repealing Article 9, titled Gas Standards, adopting a new Article 9, titled Adoption of the International Fuel Gas Code 2015 edition, which includes Section 10-374, Adoption of the ICC International Fuel Gas Code 2015 edition, and 10-375, Amendments to the ICC International Fuel Gas Code 2015 edition. Repealing Article 10, titled Mechanical Standards, Division 1, titled Generally, adopting a new Article 10, Division 1, titled Adoption of the International Mechanical Code, 2015 edition, which includes new sections 10-396, Adoption of the ICC International Mechanical Code, 2015 edition, and 10-397, Amendments to the ICC International Mechanical Code, 2015 edition. Repealing Article 11, titled Electricity, Division 2, titled Technical Standards, adopting a new Article 11, Division 2, titled Adoption of the National Electrical Code 2014 edition, which includes sections 10-485, Adoption of the National Electrical Code 2014 edition, that's the NFPA 70-2014, and 10-486, Amendments to the National Electrical Code 2014 edition, NFPA 70-2014, and 10-487, Other Electric Utilities, providing for the protection of existing rights and remedies, and providing for severability. I'm going to take a second to breathe here. All right, Mr. Dorman.
This is essentially the same document that you saw on first reading a couple of weeks ago, with the exception that there have been some adjustments to that Section 11 that was discussed, was raised earlier, and if it's all right, I would mind impose on Ms. Dennison to tell you what those are, because I believe it is a deletion of that section, but I don't want to misspeak here because she has shepherded this thing through.
Yes, that is correct. The ordinance that you have in front of you this evening, it is the exact same that you had on first reading, with the exception of addressing some of the concerns that have been voiced at the Building Trades Board and in recent correspondence with the city. I believe in the ordinance, it starts on page 11 and goes through pages 12, and it's the energy efficiency section. And the ordinance that you have in front of you strikes everything that is in there. So the default will be back to what's adopted by the state in lieu of this clarification section.
does that address what Mr.
Yes, ma'am.
Strider brought up?
It sure does. And if you have technical questions, our building official is here.
You mean like what the
does this mean?
fenestration U factor means?
Yes, sir.
Compared to the R factor?
Yeah.
I will gladly defer.
Well, generally, instead of adopting a somewhat more specific standard, we're using what's in the code already as the energy efficiency standards.
Correct.
That makes sense. Without having to explain the U code, U value and R value and all that stuff. Counselors, questions, comments, or motions?
Motion to adopt ordinance number 3414
With the,
with the.
As amended?
As
amended.
as amended.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 3414 as amended. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, the ordinance is adopted. Thank you all for your work on that. Thanks, Paula. Let's try to keep them a little shorter next time. I don't know if we can do that. All right, that takes us to item B, ordinance number 3415, an ordinance amending the city code of the city of Stillwater, Oklahoma, titled, excuse me, I'm going to start over. Ordinance number 3415, an ordinance amending the city code of the city of Stillwater, Oklahoma, chapter 20, titled Fire Prevention and Protection, repealing Article 3, titled Fire Prevention Code, adopting a new Article 3, titled Adoption of the ICC International Fire Code 2015 edition, which includes new section 20-49, adoption of the ICC International Fire Code 2015 edition, and 20-50, amendments to the ICC International Fire Code 2015 edition, amending City Code Chapter 23, titled Land Development Code, Article 17, titled Required Improvements, Section 23-357, titled Water Distribution System, regarding fire hydrants in rural water districts, providing for the protection of existing rights and remedies, and providing for severability. Mr. Dorman.
This is identical to the draft that you saw on first reading. It's been back through all of the Building Trades Board with the amendments that we had already placed in the first reading draft. So this one is ready for adoption if it is acceptable to you.
Counselors?
Motion to adopt ordinance number 3415.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 3415. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, the ordinance is adopted. All right, takes us down to item 10, reports from officers and boards. Mr. Dorman.
One item, request an executive session pursuant to 25 OS subsection 307B4 for confidential communication between the city council and the city attorney concerning a pending investigation involving ATEC paving. It is my opinion that disclosure of this matter will seriously impair the ability of the council to process this claim and conduct this investigation, litigation or proceeding in the public interest.
Thank you. Mr. McNichol.
2 items, Mayor. Thank you. Another update on our water resource projects. The Waterline Dead End Looping Project has now completed 9 sites with 2 more currently in construction. And that's designed to keep the water moving and fresher and sanitizer lasts longer. The project is estimated to finish in mid-October, and you can review all water resource projects on our city's website. Next, I have a list of new hires from the city. These are replacements for people who have left. We have 2 meter readers, Colin Randall and Joseph Cartwright. File technician Lindsay Gibbs. Firefighter 1, Caleb White, Emily Hauser, Holden Hunsinger, Jimmy Sparks, Mason Wells, and Rhett Strain. New library director Melody Kellogg, and entry maintenance workers Carlos Berhans, Cody Booth, Seth Winter, Quinn Shire. Waste management attendants Anthony Payne and Jonathan Furbo. Hope I got that right. And a wastewater treatment plant operator Jeffrey Darby. We welcome those folks.
Yes, welcome to the city of Stillwater.
Thank you.
All right, Councilor Zanotti.
I do. Let's see. Up With People is coming to Stillwater on September 24th through October 1st as part of their 2018 World Tour. Tickets are now on sale online for their performances on September 29th. Host families are being sought to keep one or more students from the 100-member cast. Full details are on the city's website.
Excellent. Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Starting this week, crews are repairing parts of the walking path that were damaged at Boomer Lake on North Husband Street. Around 30 panels of the path will be replaced as part of the restoration. Pedestrians or bicyclists using the path during replacement should expect portions of the path to be closed or rerouted temporarily. So be careful. And I would just like to comment to Mr. Reed. He asked what we could do, what he could do, what citizens could do, and the first item was about setting the public hearing date for the closing the right-of-way. That public hearing date will be October the 15th. So email us, call us, get your information. Be here October the 15th for the public hearing. And absolutely, we would love to have everything shipshape for all kinds of transportation. We're working on it. Keep after us.
We're all, along those lines, as we develop our more comprehensive scooter and potentially bike rental and the codes or ordinances that involve all of the newer active transportation modes that we're seeing pop up around the country, we will certainly have BPAC involved in helping us formulate those new ordinances as well. So the work that you all do on that committee is important, and we want to make sure that we're listening and involving that as much as you can. Anything else?
No.
No. Councilor Wedlake.
I actually do not have any talking points, Mayor. Mr. McNichol did a fantastic job of announcing the new hires for the city of Stillwater, so I will not repeat
yours.
those. Did
Wow.
better than I could do. So, well done, sir.
Well, thanks for being here. Councilor Jaloski.
The city of Stillwater collected $2,415,524 in sales tax from June 2018 transactions that were apportioned to the city in August 2018. This is an 8.35% increase from August 2017. Good job. Read the monthly report on sales, use, and hotel motel tax collection on the city's website.
That's great news.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, that takes us down to item 12, appointments. We have a Western Payne County Ambulance Authority appointment on the agenda tonight. The current chair, Elaine Ackerson, her term is expiring, although she's asked to be reappointed, and I would like to nominate her to be reappointed to a new 3-year term as chair of the Western Payne County Ambulance Trust Authority.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a nomination and a second. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, Ms. Ackerson is reappointed as chair of the Western Payne County Ambulance Trust Authority. Thank you very much for your service on that board. All right, I'm going to recess the city council meeting at this point and move us over to, is that the right word? I always forget. I don't want to adjourn. I want to recess. Yeah. All right, we'll recess the city council meeting at this point and move over to the, what do I got next? Do Utilities Authority, or you want to do?
Yeah, I'll do that.
We'll do Utilities Authority next. I have way too much paper up here, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All right, I will call the September 10, 2018 meeting of the Stillwater Utilities Authority to order, and we will jump down to the consent docket. Councilors, questions, comments, or motions on the consent docket?
Motion to approve the consent docket?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent docket. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, the consent docket is approved. This takes us to item 5, general orders. Item A, contract recommendation for the advanced meter infrastructure project with Alcara Technologies, LLC, upon satisfactory negotiation of terms and conditions, authorized for expenditures of the rate stabilization fund up to $4,116,000 plus a 10% contingency, and authorization for expenditures from Water Capital Fund for $4,823,000, cost plus a 10% contingency. This is SUA 18-35. Mr. McNichol.
Lauren Smith from Stillwater Electric Utilities, Director, will give that report. But while he's on his way up, it takes sometimes a village to develop this information. So if you worked on this project, stand up, will you? Please?
That is a village.
That is, yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Lauren Smith, Electric Utility Director. Yes, we're very excited to be here to present this tonight. This has been a project that we started well over a year ago, and have just been, the team has just done a phenomenal job of vetting out this process and finding us a system that will be to fit our needs. So here tonight to talk about advanced meter infrastructure, and throughout this report I'll refer to it as AMI from here on out. Simply described, AMI is all the communications and computer hardware and software necessary to communicate with smart devices. In our case, initially, these smart devices are water meters and electric meters. The AMI system provides efficient centralized reading, system operation, and provides other important functions. Modern AMI systems can provide many smart grid capabilities, such as in the customer service realm, a customer portal where customers can, via the web, get online and look at their usage, their electric usage, their water usage, and compare that to previous years. And it's just a great tool for customers who want to really stay on top of their electric usage. One of the biggest, I say the biggest, there's a whole list here, and they all seem to have about the most importance. However, remote turn on and turn off of electric meters is very important in this transient community that we live in. We have college students moving in and out very regularly, which means that a truck and a meter reader has to go out and read the meter, pull the meter, and do a lot of things that now this could just be at a click of the switch. Customer usage data whenever assisting a customer with unusually high bills. Customers call in and they have issues about their bill. We can trend their data and look and help them to understand what might be going on through what we can see. Along those same lines are customer water leak detection, which is very important. You might have a water leak that goes on for a long time and no one knows until they get the high bill. Well, we can now see that very quickly and alert them, hey, well, you've got an issue on your system. So to add a little bit to more of the customer service, the billing. So remote meter reading of electric and water meters. This is very important. The city's 21,000 electric meters are currently being read by city staff on foot. And most water meters are read by a drive-by system known as automated meter reading. Other items like alarm notification of meter tampering, overheated meter socket conditions for electric meters, remote meter reprogramming and upgrades, which is very important. You don't have to go out to the meter. You can do it from a central database and push information out. Flexibility to design and offer rate structure alternatives. This is a great tool to design the perfect rate for your customers because you can actually see exactly what they're using and when. Revenue protection and theft detection. That's very important. Another option that seems to be popular in other communities is prepay options for customers who wish to pay month to month, something that we currently don't have. From an operations standpoint and operating the electric and water systems, one of the key benefits is to provide real-time information to our control centers, right? So we have an outage management system that when we have an outage, any outage, big or small, we manually have to input data into our outage management system for it to properly project what's going on. Now with AMI, this is all done automatically. As a matter of fact, before you can probably call in and tell us your power's out, we can see that your power's out and say we're already on it. I mean, it's that quick, and so that's such a key benefit to automation. Voltage control. So currently we really can't see past our distribution substations, the voltage, right? And so this will allow us to see all the way down to the end-use customer at the end of the line what their voltage are and how we can make that better and reduce losses on our system. Maybe we don't need as much capacitance. Maybe we can use a smaller transformer, but we can't see that right now. But these meters and this smart technology will allow us that capability. Along those same lines is remote water pressure monitoring, right? So right now, There's only a point they reach similar to a substation level where they can't see what the water pressure is at the end of the line. Now, with this technology, they'll have a broad picture of where they're having issues with water pressure, and how they can enhance that. So, really, the project overview is this. We're proposing to replace approximately 21,000 electric meters and replace approximately 18,000 water meter radios with the possibility of meters. Installation of a new AMI communication network, computer and hardware and software providing a customer portal, integration with customer service, billing, and monitoring systems, and connecting into the electric and water utilities operations system. Norman did a great job. This kind of gets to where we start talking about the AMI group. In the fall of 2017, the AMI project group was created to begin the procurement process. The group included 16 individuals selected from the city's customer service, electric, information technology, operations, and water resources. And they're all here. The group released a request for qualifications, then a request for proposals. After extensive research, the group determined that Aclara Technologies would be the best to provide the AMI system for the city of Stillwater. And I really highlight that word extensive because we don't take these projects lightly, and every rock is turned over. This team has asked all the tough questions, has gone down the paths and turned around to come back, and we can't do that. So just very extensive research. They did a phenomenal job. One of the I think, good things about the project is a pilot program. We want to make sure that we believe we have truly vetted this thing as hard as we can, but the pilot program will tell us. And that pilot program will be for 3 months, and that'll allow Aclara to show us that they can do what they have promised. And so if the pilot program is successful, full deployment will begin, and probably a 24 to 30 month full deployment is what we're estimating to get this out to both water and electric. If the pilot is not successful, the contract will be voided at no cost to the SUA, and staff will return to the trustees to discuss this action further. So some of the benefits I listed above, as mentioned at the beginning of the report, there are many benefits to having a modern AMI system for electric and water. From the electric standpoint, the AMI project will let our customers take full advantage of these modern smart grid technologies. From the water standpoint, they currently have an automated meter reading system in place that is no longer supported and is regularly failing. Without an upgrade, this system will eventually fail, and additional meter readers will be required to begin manually reading the meters monthly. So kind of to sum up here, we get to project cost. The project cost is estimated to be $8,125,000. Split between electric and water, the electric piece will be about $3,741,000, and the water portion will be approximately $4,384,000. And those funds will come from the Electric Rate Stabilization Fund for the electric and from the Water Capital Fund for the water. So I have a recommendation here. However, I think I would pause here and take any questions. And again, the group's here to answer any technical questions if we get something that I can't handle.
Thank you very much, Lauren. That's very thorough and well explained at this point. I appreciate that. Trustees, questions at this point?
I just had a question about when you say the pilot program for 3 months, is that just a proportion of the 21,000 meters?
Yes.
Because
yes.
it obviously would take longer than 3 months to get all 21. So when you're talking about just a certain number of the 21,000, that would be?
Yes, and we were hoping for a 21,000 meter 10-year pilot program, but they wouldn't go for that.
You tried.
It's a small portion, and it's for them to prove that their technology will, do what it says it will do, and it will work well with our systems that we already have in place, such as OMS, our billing software, and all these components. Whenever the team, I mentioned they turned over every rock, they visited, I believe, 5 cities that were similar to ours that had the same technology just to make sure that all this would mesh. This is a very complex interrelationship between all these different software providers and systems that we use. So yeah, it's just a small niche area just to show that they could make it happen.
Thank you.
Trustees, other questions?
I have a few questions.
Okay.
I was pretty shocked, actually, in the first paragraph to notice that the AMR system came into play in 2010 and is now called aging or aged. And
Obsolete.
Really?
Yes.
8 years?
Yes, and I am sure someone from Water can come up here and explain exactly what happened in that area, so.
Well,
But-
I'm just amazed and was happy to see that
Aclara,
Aclara supports their system for how many years out?
they've been in business for 45 years, and so I believe their Gen 1 system, the last component they just took out in 2017, so they supported it for that long. And that was a very key point to the of what we really wanted, was that a company that would stand behind their product, that had been in business for a long time, and could really do everything in-house as well, right? They didn't have a bunch of subcontractors, and everything was kind of meshing inside. So, yes, it was shocking to us too.
And we have 21,000 electric meters that are currently read by individual persons.
Yes, ma'am.
How many individual persons?
Dana?
We currently have 4 full-time meter readers and 1 part-time meter reader.
Did we add 2? Did you read 2? I thought we had 2 tonight.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
We had 2 additional.
Oh, yes.
from tonight. So.
Will this new system put their jobs in jeopardy?
I don't believe so. I think that there's enough work out there to do to support to the rest. So when we say remote turn on and turn off, we're not doing all 21,000 meters. It's not cost prohibitive. We're focusing those more around on the college and the people that are transient. So there still will be a need for them and to cross-train them and retrain them to help support the efforts in the future.
And Counselor, if there was no further, we would handle that through attrition.
You know, I think that we're always excited about new software and new projects, and then we don't always understand the long-term commitment, financial commitment to the new technology and updating safe software. Do you have a projection for that?
I do not. I will turn to the crowd. Oh, Billy's dying to get up here and answer a question. He told me earlier, he said, man, let me up there. I want to talk.
Absolutely excited to have the opportunity to explain this to you. I was one of the ones that primarily went around to those 5 different cities and looked at all this information, and it's absolutely fascinating. So to address your question specifically, you said you were curious about the estimated software cost?
Well, the long-term financial commitment to software updates and new technology as it comes along.
As far as I understand it, and we've read it over in IT, that cost is built into the cost of the total cost of the project. Aclara pretty much handles everything internally. If there's any issues with software licensing or hardware failure, they handle that. They take care of that for us. There are opportunities if there's upgrades or something to that nature that they'll extend to us as a courtesy and we can maybe purchase, but we're not required to do any of that in order for our system to maintain itself for the next 20 years.
20 years?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Shall I ask another question?
Yeah.
Keep going.
How do you manage those vast quantities of data?
That's the beautiful thing about technology, right? When we talk about the OMS system, my job is to make sure that system works. And it is dependent upon our customers, each and every one, to call us and let us know they're out of power. We can't see that. And then the system is only as good as the information we put into it. So going forward, being able to see all of these meters talking at once allows us an instantaneous response. So we're kind of literally pulling ourselves into the 21st century. The technology that we're using now is antiquated. It's probably, I would say anything that you had back in the 1980s and 1990s is probably what we have right now in terms of meters. We talk about having meter readers go out and look at those individual meters. We're absolving ourselves of that. We're embracing the fact that we can do this a lot easier. The automation of this process makes it significantly easier, not only for you all to understand what's going on, but all these helpful people right here that work day in and day out to make sure that the lights stay on makes their job infinitely easier.
How do you ensure the security of all that data?
That's a partnership with Aclara as well as the internal IT group. It's a standard that we place a very high importance on. The information contained in these systems belongs to our citizenry. Part of almost all of us in this group live in town, and we want to make sure that that information stays secure. Between the policies that Brad, our IT director, as well as Roy Levicki and others inside of the department have set forth, we've also acquired a security administrator that also looks at our policies, creates a disaster recovery plan if we have any issues with it, and also making sure that we stay up to date with any software that needs to stay updated as well.
Okay. I have a couple more.
Keep going.
Do you have a lifespan for these meters?
The big thing to remember is with the meters that the way that we have now are electromechanical, so they have moving parts inside of them. We're essentially going to be trading those
Thing
out.
spins real fast in the summer.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Yeah.
What we're switching to is essentially a computer inside of the meter, right? Those have finite lives. They will guarantee the system will work for 20 years, and that includes when those devices fail. It's just for us in our group, we understand technology progresses, things fail. It's not a question of if, it's just a question of when. We firmly believe, based on the research we've done with the cities that we've talked to, as well as the products that Aclara has presented to us, that they're more than capable of being able to replace anything that fails.
Good. One last question. What do you do with 21,000 old meters?
That's an excellent question, and one, thankfully, we do have experience. One of our meter reader, Jim Holt, actually has experience with this based on his time with Farmington when they rolled out an AMI system. Fortunately, that was something that we paid attention to because we were concerned, where the heck are we going to store 21,000 devices? Aclara, part of the agreement is Aclara is going to take all of that equipment and dispose of it properly, as well as provide all of the last meter reading data off of that as well, because obviously we want to make sure that when we move over to the new system, the customer doesn't see a difference in terms of their billing.
You just forgive everything prior to.
Boy, wouldn't that be nice? Yeah, that would be nice.
It'd be a great marketing.
Switch mine over in July.
Yes, exactly.
And actually, that is my last question. How do we or you present this to the customers, to the citizens? Is there a marketing program in place?
Yes. As a matter of fact, Aclara provides all of that.
Well, for $8 million, that's pretty nice.
That's kind of the thought process we had as well. Personally speaking, taking my city half off here for a second and dealing not only with Aclara but those other individual cities, I can honestly tell you, as far as customer service goes, that's extremely important to me in my job, as well as day-to-day just interacting with other people. I have yet to come across a company as large as Aclara is that truly dedicates the time and resources to make sure all questions get answered in a timely and efficient manner, and that anything to do with hardware failure gets replaced immediately. I cannot speak any higher of them, and I think that's reflected in our report.
Great. Where are they located?
St. Louis, Missouri, as a matter of fact.
St. Louis?
Yep.
Oh, great.
I asked the question, where is your call center based? USA. Everything that they have is U.S. manufactured and U.S. supported.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
I can tell you've done your homework.
I'm really excited. I was really excited
tell.
about the opportunity to present this to you and be involved in this process, because I have to be honest, for me, again, personally, I don't have any ties to this community. I'm from Arizona. I don't know anybody out here. Came out all on my own. And this community is so vibrant, so accepting, so warming, and really, to an extent, very progressive with its ideas and willingness to accept technology and embrace the fact that we can make a pretty big difference for a lot of people in rural Oklahoma. And this is a project that I think is very exciting to be a part of, because you're going to be a part of a project, much like SEC will be here for a very long time. This AMI project is going to be around for a long time as well. And it's going to have some pretty big ramifications that are for the community that are positive. So I'm really excited about this. I hope you guys are as enthused as we all are. I think I carry the
I'm not sure anyone is as enthused as you are.
I hope Alcara is
great.
watching.
Yeah.
It's an awesome thing. It's really one of those eye-opening things, something that I was experienced as a customer out in Arizona. Of course, we have much more people, bigger companies, blah, 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 blah. But it's really exciting to see the city have a willingness to try and potentially embrace this kind of thing.
Well, thanks for your work and for the information. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I'll be especially excited when the smart street lights can be a part of that.
Yes, absolutely, and that's a part, that can be a part of this project. Yeah, absolutely. It's a technology that's right there on the cusp, and we kind of go back to say this fiber loop that we wrapped around the city is the foundation for all these great things that can happen. So it's those great decisions made, that were made in the past that we're able just to start stacking great technologies on top of it.
Trustees, further questions at this point?
No.
I am going to ask one. It's covered in your report a bit, but I would like for you to just explain. They're not the low bidder on this project, right?
Right.
So
Nope.
if you can give me just a couple of minutes of why we're not choosing the low bidder here.
You bet. I think one of the biggest reasons that when we started this project, we really like a company that can do everything in-house. That they don't have, they're not using subcontractors for part of the project out here, because what happens then, you get the finger pointing game when stuff doesn't go right. So we really like a company that can do it all in-house, that has been in the business for a long time, that we're just 100% confident is going to give us the product that we need. So sometimes that comes at a premium. Billy, you asked about security, and so one of the big things was housing all the data in-house, right? And so our meter data management system, all the servers and all that will be housed right here in this building, so that data won't be susceptible to things outside the real world, and so, or in the cloud. We're in the cloud-based stuff now. So that was it was things along the way where Aclara right off the bat said, absolutely, we know exactly what you're talking about and we can make it happen. And where the others kind of said, we think we can make that happen. And then as we went down the path, well, we think we can make that happen, or we can. And, it's just the warm fuzzy. So I think there was a lot of things like customer support, right? Billy kind of hit on it. Aclara will be here, that they will support any PR efforts that we need to get out there. Their project to deploy these, we wanted a turnkey process, right? So Aclara will be making contact with our customers. They will be setting up appointments to change the meters out. They will be taking pictures before, in between, after. They will make sure that the customer experience, they'll have their own number where they can call and get any questions answered. It's that kind of support that I think we really need on this project. We're not AMI experts. We know there'll be questions out there that they will have that for. So it's that level of customer support, providing the right equipment that we feel like will meet our needs and make this a win-win for everyone.
Thank you. Anything further? If we approve this tonight, when's the pilot project going to start?
We'll get a contract in place, I'd say a month or so. By the time we can get a contract worked out, negotiated, in a couple months.
Sure.
Yeah. So we'll be heading down the path. What's John? Well, yeah, see, well, yeah, I'll look over here. What do you think, John?
They're talking about contract.
Yeah. So we'll do our best to make things move right along. We're as anxious as anybody else, so.
Thank you. Anything further? Do you want to give us your recommendations, please?
Yes, sir. So staff recommends that the trustees approve the AMI project, authorize staff to execute a contract with the Clara for AMI upon satisfactory negotiations of the terms and conditions, authorize expenditures from the Electric Rate Stabilization Fund up to $4,116,000, which is the electric cost listed above, plus a 10% contingency, and authorize expenditures from the Water Capital Fund to $4,823,000, which is the water cost listed above, plus a 10% contingency.
Council, or trustees?
Motion to accept staff recommendation 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept staff recommendations. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, the recommendations are approved.
And on behalf of the team, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you all for your work.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, that takes us to item 6, reports from officers and boards. Mr. Dorman.
Nothing to report, sir.
Mr. McNichol.
Nothing, sir.
Trustees?
No.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn the Stillwater Utilities Authority meeting. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, the Utilities Authority is adjourned. All right, that takes us to the Stillwater Economic Development Authority meeting for September 10, 2018. I'll call the meeting to order. Let all these folks go off and enjoy their evening. Sure you don't want to stick around? All right. No, I guess they don't. If I was Justin, I'd be offended. All right. On the Stillwater Economic Development Authority meeting, we're on item 3, general orders. Item A, Chamber of Commerce quarterly report. Mr. McNichol.
Justin Mingus will be providing the Chamber's quarterly report.
Well, I won't be making an $8 million request.
Is it 10?
Good.
Yeah, there's a bit of a contingency added onto it. Counselors, thank you for having me. Sorry, this one's a few weeks later than we had anticipated. We'd hoped to be here a little bit ago, but there was some confusion with our schedule. So what we'll be updating today is Q4 of FY 17-18. For those of us operating on a calendar year, it's Q2 of 18, so April, May, and June. And then I have some annual totals in there as well. But as normal, I'll just keep it brief, and if you have any questions about some of the activity that we're going through, feel free to rapid fire. So for the quarter, our RFP activity was consistent to what it's been the last 18 months. We received 26 RFPs, responded to 9 of those. And as we've explained in the past, the reason we don't respond to all of the RFPs is because we don't have the particular asset that they're looking for. An example of that would be 2 miles from a major interstate interchange of I-40 and I-35, or maybe 1,000 contiguous acres with rail access, something that we don't particularly have. So we responded to 9 of those that we had the asset that we qualified for. As of the end of that quarter, June 30th, we had 23 active projects. So of those 9, plus a few carryovers from the previous quarters. We performed 5 business retention and expansion visits in the quarter, and we had 2 site visits during that quarter. Our annual totals, so for the fiscal year that we contract with you all for, we received 102 RFPs, and we responded to 43, so about 43% of those. We'd been averaging around 50%, so a little bit of a decrease in what we had qualified for. And when we went back and looked at the data, there was a lot of mega site RFPs that came out during the last quarter, so 1,000 acres or more with some specific utility access, which we just didn't have. We had 23 BREs performed for that year, and we had 9 site visits. To toot Trent and I's horn a little bit, as I've said in the past, before Trent and I got to work together, we had 1 site visit as an organization. We had 4 our first year of working together, and so we had 9 our second year. So not that activity is the only justification of what we do, but we can't get a hit if we don't have an at-bat, and so we're pretty excited about having 9 site visits. And then an update on our industrial park. As we said earlier, we broke ground on April 16th. We had hoped to complete that. Well, we were on track for about 3 weeks ago until the rain started in the last 2 or 3 weeks. The only thing we have lacking is the road to be poured on the industrial side, as well as a connection point for our sewer across Perkins Road on the commercial side. So if we can get the rain to hold out a little bit, we can get those two poured. Just to recap on that, it's about a $1.7 million project, 65 acres total, 23 commercial and 42 industrial. And we have two 1-acre lots already committed by a local entrepreneur coming from Meridian, Max Q and Explosive, which I've bragged about those geniuses before in this. We had our first program attempt at an internship program, Stillwater 360. This was a brainchild of Rebecca Eastham. She turned this thing from conception to completion probably in about a month with a branding and logos and everything. I mean, I don't know how she did it. I'm really sad that she's rolling off of our board this year. I'm going to have to actually do some work. So this was kind of we didn't invent this. We kind of stole this from other communities. Oklahoma City has it. Omaha has it. But what we do is all of our businesses that have interns here for the summer, we kind of create a little miniature Leadership Stillwater. We do 6 sessions. We do one here at the city. We have a nonprofit night. We have a kind of an economic development night. And we just talk to them about what it's like to be a good citizen in a community. Of course, there's a little bit of sprinkling of how awesome Stillwater is, and hopefully they stick around. But we try not to hit them too hard with that because it's just a general citizen education class. We had 16 participate from 13 employers. So for our first year, we were pretty excited about that. We were shooting for maybe 25 in year 2.
How many different places were they from?
13. Interwork.
Well, I meant like, are they local? Most
I'm sorry. Okay.
From Oklahoma?
Yeah.
Or are they
so
from out of state?
Most of them, I would say probably 10 of those, I think, were all Oklahoma-based. There was one that came up from San Antonio. I think there was 1 or 2 from Kansas. But I would say in general, they're mostly Oklahoma, mostly OSU students that stuck around for the summer. Interworks gave us 2, so we were pretty excited about them. You guys travel too darn much. They missed a couple sessions. And finally, I'll stop with and brag on our 1 Million Cups program. I know I've seen several of you guys attend that. We're averaging 50 to 60 every month, which is amazing for a small community like us. And in the documents I sent you guys, we had Stillwater Martial Arts, made possible by Basecamp, 1-3 Design, Kiva, and Whisper Intimate Apparel all spoke last quarter. So we're pretty excited about the entrepreneurs coming up and telling their story and not being embarrassed to share where they maybe stubbed their toe and give some kudos to the people in the audience that have helped them along the way. So we're really excited about that program. With that, I'll let you read my boring Excel document in there. I'm sorry, it's not a Tableau beautiful like you're used to, Will.
I only know how to use Excel.
You hire a guy for the other stuff.
Trustees, questions or comments for Justin?
Justin, as you looked at the RFPs coming in and based on Stillwater location, all of that, is there a general trend to the types of RFPs that we're receiving, or are they is it a mixture of different ones?
Yeah, I would say that there's probably two that we're seeing more of, 2 industry-specific. Shared service operations centers are a big trend right now. So a lot of our coast friends are picking up their California and East Coast. Think call center, but with a degree. So our HR and finance and accounting shared operations for those companies, and they're trying to consolidate to the central part of the U.S. One, to help kind of meet both time zones, 2, just a cost benefit in general. Oklahoma City has won a few of those. We've tried to be competitive. A lot of those are just really high head count. I mean, they're 1,000 head count RFPs, and our labor pool just doesn't sometimes justify 1,000 head count, HR or accounting, finance. We could play in the space of probably 200, but 1,000 is kind of tough. So that's one, is the shared service. The other one would be a lot of food and bev, which we are really competitive. Our utility friends, if they were still there, I'd brag on them, but we're actually only one of 2 or 3 communities in the state that we've been able to pitch on an RFP that needed 2 million gallons of water a day. Our power capacities are far exceeding all of our peer communities. So some of our site visits and our presentations have been mostly in the food and bev space. And we just went down to Dallas. It's not in this report because we're in that quarter, but 2 weeks ago, Trent and I went down and visited with some site selectors in that area, specifically talking about food and beverage projects and how we can better showcase our data, how we can, not to spin anything, but to show them really what we have, and that way they don't look at just a rural community out an hour from the metros.
Thanks.
I'm interested in your scholarship.
Yeah, Spencer Carter. So this is our first year, well, that I could find data. I imagine we've given scholarships in the past, but it hadn't been since I've been back to Stillwater. So we beat the drum on workforce and how workforce is important. That it's the new, with 3.7% unemployment, everyone that essentially wants or needs a job has a job. And there are plenty of employers that are looking to hire but maybe don't have the specific skill set. So we put our money where our mouth is, literally, I guess, and gave a scholarship to a high school senior that as long as they were continuing their education in Stillwater, so it didn't have to be OSU, it could be Meridian or Northern Oklahoma College, we wanted to give them a $500 scholarship. And we had several applicants. Spencer stood up to us because he's a black belt and an Eagle Scout. Right, so I think each of those is only like 4% of the country, and so to have both of those in one was pretty impressive. And those applications, those kids are wicked smart. That was my best attempt at a Boston accent, I guess.
Trustees? Have you seen much bump or interest in the new opportunity zone classifications that we've seen in the new tax codes?
There's a lot of people still trying to figure out how to maneuver through the opportunity zone. I mean, in short, this type of thing has already existed in the real estate market where you could, 1035, 1031 exchange. It's essentially what it is, but for businesses in general. Mm-hmm. So you can take assets that a business you've profited on outside of an opportunity zone or inside, it's agnostic to where the business was located. As long as you invested inside of an opportunity zone, which we are, there are certain tax benefits. So it's not like a 1031 where it's just completely exempt until you sell that property or exchange it again. What it does is, in general, I think you get about a 7-year grace period on those taxes, and they give you some sort of a discount on what your taxes would have been, but then all the new profits from your new venture, I believe, are tax-free. Mm-hmm. That's about the extent of what we know, right? And so we haven't seen that many. We're working on a couple large CapEx projects right now that have some coastal ownership that maybe that could be a benefit to them. But even when you talk to some site selectors, they're still trying to figure out how to do that, because although what I described is how we think the tax code is going to do it, they haven't really have executed or written language that truly puts that set in stone. So it's kind of hard to ask somebody to invest in this new vehicle when they don't really know exactly how their accounts are going to play with it.
Okay.
But we're learning. I know Paul and I had a good conversation about it about 2-3 weeks ago in a meeting, trying to figure it out. She sent us some good literature over. I listened to a couple podcasts on the way to DC the other day.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of info, same sort of stuff about, I mean, it seems like a great sort of opportunity for folks, especially in the coasts, to take some of that profit they've made out there and bring it somewhere where they can keep more of it. So I would hope that we're able to tout that and show people that they can bring their money here and keep more of it.
Right, yeah.
All right. Further questions or comments, trustees? Thank you, Justin.
Awesome, thank you.
Yes.
All right, that takes us to item 3B, request for qualifications for tourism development, SEDA-18-02. Mr. McNichol.
Special projects person, John McClinney.
You know what? I skipped item 2 on this agenda. Public comment on agenda items not scheduled for public hearing, and we actually have a couple people here on this topic specifically.
Sorry.
Should I jump in here, or you want to?
Kind of up to you. You can hear them now, or you can hear them.
Why don't we do these 3B and C, and then we'll have our speakers after that, so we can. Well, actually, never mind. I'm going to change my mind on that. Let's do that now so that we have that information before we get to those items. I'm sorry. We're going to jump back to item 2, public comment on agenda items not scheduled for public hearing. I have 3 people signed up on this agenda. We'll start with Mr. Willie Baker. Please give us your name and address for the record, and give 3 minutes.
Willie Baker, 1401 South Culpeper. Good evening, trustees. And I thought I was enthusiastic about this. However, really has got it carried away. So, but we are myself and Chris Norris and Joe Martin are here, and I think they signed up, but I don't think they're necessarily going to speak.
Okay.
We weren't sure who would show.
We're going to make them anyway.
Yeah. But in any event, we at Visit Stillwater, I think most of you know this, that in one form or another has provided the services that are covered under 3B and 3C, or 3B really, for over 30 years. And while we personally would rather you don't go through the RFQ or the RFP process, we understand that. My request and our request would be on behalf of Visit Stillwater would be that instead of extending the contract through March 31, it would be extended through June 30. And that's because we're on a fiscal year. Everything we do is planned. I mean, for example, actually, we're working on things in 2019 and 2020 as we speak. So to us, it makes a lot more sense just to say, let's go to the end of the fiscal year, regardless of what the council may decide to do on this. It would seem to be a good timing thing to go that way.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it. So I do have Joe Martin and Chris Norris, but you good? Okay. All right. Sorry for skipping you before. We'll go to item 3B now. Request for qualifications, tourism development. Mr. McClenny.
Ever since the Visit Stillwater turned in their most recent annual report, there have been questions from individual counselors and the public about return on investment, how you measure it, what constitutes it, how do we determine whether or not we're getting what we want to get out of that. That is not unique to Stillwater. Did some looking, and when it comes to destination marketing return on investment, all the communities are asking what's important, and your return on investment is very much based on what you consider to be the return that you're looking for. How do you measure it? There are a number of different ways to do that. And then how do you report it? To give you an example, you've probably heard of Pure Michigan because we've all seen it on TV. But looking at Michigan and Alaska, Michigan reports $5.76 per dollar spent in return on their investment. And Alaska reports $72 per dollar spent in return on their investment. So it would appear that Alaska is doing much better, but it depends on what they were looking for. Because if you look at what Michigan was looking for, that's sales tax returned per dollar spent. And they have a company that did a very elaborate study and calculations to determine what that is. Alaska calculates theirs based on the advertising value of 456 tourism stories. So they've assigned a value to those stories that were printed in magazines, newspapers, etc. So their return on investment is very different when compared to Michigan. So it's not really an apples to apples comparison. If you look at standard DMO or performance reporting, it's complex. There are hundreds of different ways that you could measure return on investment just in the standard DMO performance reporting information that we have. A lot of it is subjective. There's no real direct way to measure some of the things that are in performance reporting. There's no direct relationship to dollars spent per dollars earned necessarily from some of the things that are reported in standard DMO reporting. And it's easily challenged. You can look at Pure Michigan, for example. If you do a quick Google search, you'll find a lot of challenges to even the information that they've got. And they did, like I said, a very extensive study to determine how many sales tax dollars were coming back to the state. So examples of DMO performance reporting that are listed in the standard documents are things like sales missions, familiarization tours, gross impressions, and number of impressions. These all might be very valid measures of return on investment if that's what we're looking for. And that's what has to be determined and what's been difficult for communities throughout the country. If you look at direct return on investment, it's difficult to obtain data. Was a visitor here for something specific because of something that we did, or were they going to be here anyway? And you've got to kind of determine the difference between the two. Tax revenues also don't work very well as an indicator, and I'll go into that a little bit more in a later slide. So some examples of direct return on investment would be number of visitors. How many visitors showed up specifically because of what we did? Hotel room nights. The number of conventions booked, number of attendees at events. Those are very direct measures of what our destination marketing did. So if you look at taxes as a measure, this is a graph of sales tax in Stillwater over the years that we've had a full year contract with Visit Stillwater. And all of the fluctuations in here are a result of a variety of factors. They're economic differences that are fairly extensive that could really never be calculated without the kind of study that Pure Michigan did to determine what theirs was. So you couldn't really tie something specific related to tourism to any of these numbers. They go up, they go down, the economy goes up and down. Even if you look at a more direct measure of hotel tax, you can see that over the time that we've had the contract with Visit Stillwater, the hotel tax has gone up slightly each year. But again, those could be just as easily tied to economic factors. We had a better economy, more people were traveling, things like that. In each of the years that we've had the contract, there was more spent on the contract with Visit Stillwater than was generated in hotel tax. However, that was possible because of a surplus that was generated over the course of several years prior to this. If you look at it in a different way, over the years that we've had the contract with Visit Stillwater, you can see that in comparing to the base year of 2015, sales tax was down almost $250,000 and hotel tax was down a slight amount. If you look at 2017, sales tax was down nearly $1 million, hotel tax was up slightly. 2018, both are up slightly. So none of those can be tied directly to anything that relates to tourism. Those are natural, normal fluctuations in sales tax and hotel tax. We've looked at all of our public-private partnerships of late with a little more scrutiny and kind of determined that a competitive process might be a better way to look at all of them in terms of making sure that we get what we're looking for. And that would include things like a request for proposals, bid solicitations, which we would do for construction contracts and things like that, a request for qualifications to determine who's the best contractor or organization to provide the services that we're looking for. If you look at our three largest public-private partnerships, Lake McMurtry contract has ranged over the life of the agreement between $180,000 and $250,000. Stillwater Area Sports Association between $216,000 and $300,000, and Visit Stillwater between $720,000 and $900,000. So Visit Stillwater is obviously the largest of our public-private agreements, and we have had great difficulty in identifying and measuring return on investment. And again, that is not unusual based on what we've looked at. So our recommendation is to proceed with development of a request for qualifications. Part of that reason is because we have a lack of in-house expertise in determining what is a good return on investment, interpreting the data that we get from standard DMO reporting to give the council or anyone else an idea of whether or not we're getting what we're paying for. And then we have to be able to answer that question, what is important? If the advertising value is what's important, then that's going to be one of the measures of return on investment. If sales tax return to the city is important, that will be a measure of return on investment. And by going out for requests for qualifications, we hope that we'll get a broader range of ideas from various organizations about what might be the best way to measure return on investment. Second part of the recommendation is to extend the current contract with Visit Stillwater until March 31st, 2019. We're going to need that time to pull all this together because once we've got to complete and distribute the RFQ, we got to have receipt and evaluation of the responses. I would imagine the council's going to want to interview some of the respondents, and there'll be time needed for negotiations and contract execution where some of the things that we're looking for will be determined and negotiated into a contract. That is the extent of the recommendations. Before I stop, I want to show one more slide because there has been brought to our attention some discussions on social media about whether or not we have collected all of the hotel tax that's due, and so we did a graph on that as well. If you look at this, the blue is hotel tax due, and that's estimated because there are some that are in arrears, and we can only estimate based on what they've paid in the past. The green is hotel tax collected, And then the red bar, which brings everything to equivalent, is the liens that have been filed when a property is in arrears on payment of their hotel tax, and that amounts to roughly $13,000 this year. So one way or the other, we get what is due to us. The liens take a little longer. I will open it up to discussion.
Thank you. Trustees, questions or comments at this point?
Thank you for that presentation. And I think just another point is that we really want to apply this to all of our public-private. And it's not only, it's to keep us accountable as well as to keep our partners accountable. It's easy to just kind of know that somebody's doing something out there and just say, okay, great, and not reformulate what we need and want. So this is for both sides of the partnership.
I think it's also a great opportunity for us to make sure that we're constantly defining what that partnership means to both sides, to make sure that we're getting the things that we need from that partnership, keeping up to date with the industries that those partnerships are working in. I know the marketing industry has changed so much, even in the last decade, with social media and things like that. So I think an opportunity to revisit and redefine kind of what the scope of work and what that agreement needs to look like is a great opportunity for us as a city, but also I hope our partners that are working for us in these partnerships.
Just to take a step back, because I don't know if everyone may understand how this works. I mean, we collect a hotel tax, right, that's dedicated to visitor development.
Yes.
Tourism development, which is what that money's supposed to be spent on. At this point, or over the last few years, we've basically spent that on DMO, destination marketing, right? We haven't spent that on we have a little bit in the past, I think, but not.
Not in the last 3 years.
Last 3 years. Mm-hmm. So this money, the contract money we're talking about here, comes exclusively out of that. It's not general fund money. It's not money that comes out of sales tax. It comes out of hotel tax. And this examination is just the idea is to just take a look and say, is this the best way for us to spend our money? Are we getting a return on the investment that we're making? And like you have both said, to do a periodic review to make sure that we're investing the money that is entrusted to the city wisely in getting a return. So, I know before I was in this chair, I didn't really understand how some of this stuff worked, but this is a hotel tax that we spend on DMO right now. So, further comments or questions, trustees?
I just had a quick clarification. I am looking at the acronyms here, RFQ and RFP. Can you explain the difference between the two, and do we need to clarify?
Request for qualifications would be where we are going out seeking the most qualified candidate to provide us with services that may be negotiated afterwards. Request for proposals, we would actually ask for specific services and a price to go with those. We've selected the request for qualifications because it is so difficult to determine what is the return on investment that we really want to get in this contract. And we're hoping that will be brought forward in the process of seeking qualifications, negotiating contracts, et cetera, as to what specifically we can measure that will show that there's a return on investment.
Because it's just as important that we are able to articulate clearly what our expectations are for that individual or that group doing that.
I think the request for qualifications is a great vehicle for this particular partnership in general. It allows us to really dive deep into the qualifications, let the people that are experts in this field tell us kind of what some of the scopes of services that they're providing, some of the cutting edge, some of the innovation, some of the performance measuring that they're currently doing. It lets us kind of have a bigger conversation about those things before we start looking at costs and different specific contracted services. So I think it allows for a dialogue between folks that might answer or submit on the RFQ.
All right, trustees, anything further at this point? We have two agenda items here, one on the RFQ, and then the second one is on the extension of the contract. You provided recommendations on both of those.
Right.
I think we need a vote on the first on the RFQ and moving forward with the process of completing an RFQ and submitting it. So are there further comments or motions regarding item B on the RFQ?
Motion to accept the staff recommendation to go ahead with the RFQ for tourism development, item B.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept staff recommendation on request for qualification. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, that item is approved. That would then take us to 3C, which is the extension of the contract with Visit Stillwater through March 31st, 2019. This is their current fiscal year contract, which we would extend only for this proposal will be only through the 9 months of this, and then assuming that this RFQ process, either Visit Stillwater or another entity comes and is selected, that contract would then start after the 31st of March. I think it probably makes more sense for us to go ahead and do the full fiscal year with Visit Stillwater at this point. As Mr. Baker stated, it makes more sense around budget planning and what kind of the expectation was coming into this year. So I think it makes more sense to go ahead and extend that contract through the end of the fiscal year, June 30th, 2019. Any comments or objections?
I move that we do it through the end of the fiscal year, June 30th, 2019.
Do need to price it. That's the one thing that.
We had a budgeted amount for the year, correct?
Yes.
For this contract?
It was at $720,000 for the year.
So whatever's left of that through the June 30th?
Or for
That
the
would be
total?
the total amount, right?
Yeah, the total amount of the contract would be the original budget amount. So we have a motion to extend the Visit Stillwater contract at the original budget amount of $720,000 for the year through the end of June 2019.
Second.
So motion and a second on the item. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, that item is approved. Thank you, John. All right, takes us to item 4, reports from officers and boards. Mr. Dorman.
Nothing to report, sir.
Mr. McNichol.
No item, sir.
Trustees?
No.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn the Stillwater Economic Development Authority meeting. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, we're adjourned. I will now reconvene the Stillwater City Council meeting at item 13, executive session. Is there a motion to enter executive session?
Motion to enter executive session?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to enter executive session. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, we'll now enter executive session as Stillwater City Council. Thank you all.